So if I haven't met you, my name is Lindsay Hines. I am the manager of community vitality and well-being at the Community Sector Council, Newfoundland and Labrador. Um, what does that mean? It means I work basically mirroring a lot of the Health Accord initiatives and work within the social determinants of health. So employment, income, gender expression, gender identity, all those things. We work within that. And the Coffee's On program that we offer, it's been around for quite some time before I was in this role. And it's changed, it's evolved a little bit. I think it used to be frontline for folks for clients to attend. And so now, aligning with our mandate and our with the Community Sector Council, we're hoping to reach providers, and then you can tell your clients. So it's an information sharing avenue that we've used. And if you would like to have one for a program that you offer, more than happy to entertain that and to have a conversation, and you can connect afterwards. We do some in person. So I'm located physically in St. John's as my main office, but also I travel provincially a lot, more in coming up. So I would be happy to host a Coffees On in your region, and bring folks together and meet new people as well. And my job is provincial, so please use the capacity that exists. If you could take just a quick moment, no pressure, if you wanted to pop in the chat, your organization that you're representing, where in the province, Newfoundland and Labrador, you might be joining from. There's no pressure to do that, but feel free if you like. We, in an in-person Coffees On, we would probably, do a round table and a little bit of a conversation. If folks wanted to connect afterwards, we can share emails and things like that. One of the very few good things that came out of the pandemic is this embracing of technology and how it makes things very accessible, especially for my provincial work and provincial engagement. So enough from me. I'm going to make Melanie a host. And Melanie, I apologize, you need to monitor the waiting room too, because I don't know how to make myself co-host. Technology and I are just bad friends here today.
All good.
Okay, you now have the power to share your screen and introduce yourself, and all the things.
Okay. I do have a bit of a, but for now, I'm just going to kind of introduce myself and chat a little bit. So my name is Melanie Wells. I'm an employment facilitator or coach at the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work, which is a whole lot of words that just mean I support folks with disabilities to find employment. We are a national organization, but I work within the province, so Newfoundland and Labrador, serving people kind of wherever they are, remotely or in person. And so, in true nonprofit fashion, CCRW has had some changes recently. We know funding pools have come to a close, some more have opened. So, I kind of wanted to reconnect with some of the service providers in the community and chat a little bit about our new opportunities, some things that we maybe are known for that are no longer existing, and things like that. And so, for those of you who might not be super familiar with CCRW, our whole shtick is getting people with disabilities into employment. We look for long-term, accommodating, sustainable employment. We don't really do things like placements. We're not looking for short-term. We don't, we provide wage subsidies, but it's always with the intention of very long-term employment. We'll also work with individuals to upskill and various other things to try to get them into employment and fostering their independence and financial stability and all of those other things that employment dictates for the social and physical determinants of health. I just see Leanne is here. Hi, Leanne, and a few other folks. Cool. Okay. Before I kind of bring up our handy dandy PowerPoint and just kind of glaze over some of the things that we do, is there any questions? Anyone that's kind of familiar with us? Anyone that's like, who is this person? I still don't understand what you do. Anything like that?
Melanie, if it's cool with you, I'll be your like backup dancer.
Oh,
Um, and I'll monitor the chat. And
great.
because we're like pretty informal people, are you okay if folks like raise their hand and ask questions in the moment?
Yeah, shout out, raise your hand, do
And I'll
whatever you
monitor
want to
all
do.
that for you from my end where you share your screen. I think sometimes you can't see stuff, so I'll cut you off and I apologize in advance.
That's okay. Yeah. All right. So, all right. Can everyone see our lovely PowerPoint here? Good. Great. So, just gonna glaze over a few of our different topics today. So, a little bit of who we are that I've already kind of spoken about, then some of our services, and another service that we're kind of lesser known for that focuses on red seal trades. So we are pretty exclusively employment services. Once upon a time, we had a few different funding pools that were focused more on training or more on skills development, things like that. But CCRW now is like really zeroing in on our mission, which is getting people with disabilities into employment. So we work with a lot of community partners to kind of fill the gaps and the kind of give those wraparound supports. And our focus is very specifically on employment for folks that are looking to gain employment relatively soon. This is a lovely candidate that I worked with, working at Winners. She's such a nice smile. I love this picture. Okay, so we do this through a variety of ways. So we support job seekers, we support employers and businesses, and then also provide training, skills, resources to both job seekers and employers to make sure that we're not only having people with disabilities that are ready for work, but employers that are disability confident and able to receive those employees and diversify their workforce, have a place for those people to thrive. So we serve job seekers and employers, and then also apprentices. So we do have a new and kind of upcoming service to call it supporting fostering inclusion in red seal trade. So their acronym is FIRST, and that is nationwide. So what I do day to day is kind of what's outlined here. Generally, when someone works at CCRW, there's kind of two roles that they'll interact with. There's the employment coach, which is me, and the career talent consultant, which is essentially a job developer. And so someone such as I will work on one-to-one skills, planning and coaching. We'll do the resumes, the cover letters, um, the disclosure stuff, and then a variety of other things that we have here. So kind of on top of those sort of basic services that folks need to find employment, we also have a few cool initiatives and things that our job seekers are able to access, and that someone such as myself would facilitate their access to and interaction with, that sort of thing. So we have a career management portal, which is an online platform that provides essentially hundreds of courses, short, longer, on skills for the workplace, and different things that people are interested in. There are assessments. There's a variety of things that we're able to utilize as their employment coach to kind of gauge where they are in terms of employment, and also build on those skills so that they're feeling even more prepared and have kind of an arsenal of resources behind them for when they're working independently. We also have our pre-employment and workplace assessments. So sometimes we will have folks meet with occupational therapists or accommodation specialists to get an idea of what accommodations would be effective for them in the workplace. While I fancy myself a little bit of an accommodation nerd, I'm always looking up at different things that are up and coming and effective for the workplace. There's some things that just won't come across into my radar. So having those OT and assessment specialists input on things that could be helpful is really great. So they will generally leave those assessments with a piece of documentation that tells them this is what you need, this is why it works. And that's been really effective for a lot of our folks. So our candidates, we serve both diagnosed and self-identified folks with disabilities, and having that piece of documentation has been really empowering. And while it doesn't provide a diagnosis, it does provide some sort of official paper that says you should have access to this because it will make your life easier, or alleviate this barrier, right? So having that to take to the workplace, to an educational institution, to anywhere throughout their life has been a really helpful tool. And then the last little piece that I want to touch on is our VR training. So all of our sites have been equipped with a virtual reality headset with some really cool different tools and assessments in those. So we would work with our candidates to or kind of orient them with the VR, because it can be a little odd to work with at first. But then once we have them oriented, they're feeling comfortable, we can do mock interviews, we can do public speaking simulations, there's games, there's lots of different things we can do. We try to tailor it towards the employment aspects though, and it's been really great for both younger and older clientele. It's been an effective way to kind of really ease into the ideas and the skills that we're trying to facilitate. So sometimes a mock interview with me might be a little intimidating. I'm a real person in the room looking at you, but a mock interview with the VR headset might be the logical first step for someone because it feels a little less intimidating. And then the programs will actually provide feedback that we can then review. We can say, okay, this is helpful, this is not helpful, this is good, this is what we need to work on. And so that's been a really cool new initiative that we've been kind of pushing forward with. And so for employers, we do a variety of things as well. So not only providing employees that are pre-screened, ready to go, candidates that have enhanced skill sets, have maybe done a little extra training, things like that. We also provide training and coaching to employers. So that might be disability confidence, that might be they're really intimidated at implementing accommodations and need someone to kind of coach them through that. So we do those things in addition to our wage subsidies when appropriate, and other supports like accommodation, physical accommodations. In addition to that, we also have a great connection with an organization called Inova, which provides accessibility consulting services. So they are for profit, they're separate from us, but we utilize them for a few things, such as our accommodation assessments. And for employers, specifically even smaller employers or larger employers that are looking to redo their policies and procedures, they can be a great resource to connect with in order to kind of make sure that that is done appropriately. So we've had a lot of success with employers wanting to do things right, wanting to go back through those policies, those procedures, and making them more inclusive and more accessible. So then we have our Red Seal trades. So I don't work a whole lot in this area. We have some really great folks that specialize in that service, but we're essentially support folks who are looking to enter or are in an apprenticeship in order to facilitate them completing all of the phases to get their Red Seal. There's a really high rate of folks that go through a lot of their blocks and their education, but never obtain their Red Seal. And the prevalency of disability in the trades is a lot higher than you might think. There's still a lot of stigma around what disability is. But, you know, we serve folks with ADHD, anxiety, and also folks that experience physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, all of the above. And so we're really supporting folks to get through the trades, but also increasing advocacy and knowledge on what disability is and what it can look like in the trades as well. So this is kind of a slide about our VR that I already spoke about quite a bit. It's really cool. I get excited talking about it. So like I said, we have role play activities, public speaking, lots of different things that our folks are able to utilize. It can be done both seated and standing. It can be done monitored, or we can step outside the room, that sort of thing. There's a lot of different accessibility tools within it, so we can make sure that it's effective for all sorts of folks using it. So it's a very cool, very interesting tool that we've been utilizing. And so some of those benefits include increased knowledge and retention, stronger understanding of concepts related to work, real world scenarios. So there's even things like, I don't know, if you're a plumber and you need to know how to do a certain task, they might be able to simulate that in the VR. You need to, I don't know much about plumbing. I don't know why I use that example, but maybe you need to turn this valve off and replace this pipe. I'm really making a mockery of plumbing. I'm so sorry. But we can kind of simulate those tasks so you're able to feel more confident in the skills that you might be assessed in the workplace. Okay, so we also have, we're really, CCRW is quite large. We have a lot of different departments other than what I do. And one of the things we have is a pretty diverse and robust research department. And while this isn't our research, this is a stat that you can find anywhere. They have a lot of different initiatives to understand that we know what's happening and what works to diversify and increase employment for people with disabilities. So they are always kind of behind the scenes looking at how can we improve our services, what research doesn't exist that we need to know, what communities, what types of disabilities, what people are being left behind in these inclusivity and diversity services. How can we change these stats? So 27% of Canadians 15 and older, 8 million people with at least one disability. So that's a lot of our population, 27%. So what we're trying to understand is how can we do better for that gigantic chunk of our population? So much like many nonprofits, we have a lot of change. It's always changing, but we do have this fantastic research team that's there to make sure that the changes we make are founded in facts and not only evidence-based research, but also we have a lot of qualitative information from the folks we serve on what worked for you, what didn't work for you, what about our services were accessible, what services weren't. This is kind of just an overview of StatsCan. It's disability rates. It's not really what we're talking about today. Like I said, we have a variety of ways that we interact with our candidates. So once we finish our service per se, so once someone gets employed, we will follow up with them at 12, 24, and 56 weeks, 52 weeks, to make sure that they're still doing well, that they are either still working or have transitioned to a new opportunity or taking some time away, doing schooling, and make sure that there's no gaps in their support. So we want to know that if they were employed when we finish service with them, but they're not employed in 12 weeks, there's something that was missed. There's something that we need to do better to make sure, or something external can happen, things happen, but we want to make sure that we are setting people up for that long term. We want people that we serve at that 52 weeks to be employed, to be promoted, to be doing something else to work towards their long-term goals. We have this lovely testimonial. So after an illness left me with a disability, I was unsure whether I would be able to find my place back in the workforce. I'm truly grateful for the support CCRW has given me for getting back to work. The staff provided me with tools I needed to make sure the process of returning to work was a smooth one. Some more testimonials from Ontario. we have a few folks. Oh no, I didn't mean to go back. And this is Keisha. She's one of our local job seekers. She went through what used to be YTF that you might be familiar with. We had something called Youth the Future program. We returned to the workforce and became the manager at the Needs here in St. John's and thrived in that role. And maybe she was experienced barriers that people thought, oh, maybe, she won't be able to um, do certain things in the workplace. But managing that store, that hectic, sort of chaotic environment, was just the niche that she needed. And she really thrived in that position. So we have a lovely, we had a lovely interview with Keisha, and she's doing great. And so that's kind of it. I just wanted to give a bit of an overview. We can kind of chat a little more casually about some of the other things that have changed, but here is our information. I'll also pop in my information in the chat because we do serve provincially. So it's probably better just to reach out to me than to our national office. Okay. Right. So one other thing I wanted to touch on again is that our YTF program. So a lot of people know YTF. YTF ran for many years. It was an amazing program. It's near and dear to all of our hearts. Unfortunately, YTF has come to an end. Yeah.
What does YTF stand for?
Youth the Future.
Oh, yes, okay, I knew that, but anyway, I had a moment. Thank you.
I sometimes we have so many acronyms, it just becomes like engraved. So that's really good practice for us to have. A copy of the slide presentation. I don't know. I have to check with marketing, but I think it would be fine. But I will, if you want to send me your email, I can totally get something to you, Claire.
If you're allowed to share, you can pop it to me and I can pop it out to the attendees today.
Okay, perfect.
How to screenshot your contact. Okay, so did you put in the chat all of your contact information?
I will send that now. It's better to reach out to me than to our corporate office, which is our main office, which is what's on that slide, because they're in Toronto and they will just send me your email. So I will send that info.
And I'll follow up. I'll wait for your like yay or nay on the slideshow. But either way, Melanie, I can send out your contact in an email after too.
Great. Yeah.
And my tech guy is pretty swift, so he probably will have like the shareable link like before the end of today, so I can share that if folks wanted to watch it again.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, and I'll monitor the chat in the meantime too. So one of my like whys when you approached me to like share this information about CCRW was A, that you were provincial.
Yeah.
And that's like a huge thing. And I think like one of the things that the Community Sector Council we're all talking about, I guess, is the transition that happens in the sector. And you make a contact and then the person's gone, or the program exists and then it gets cut and then you don't know anymore. So it's, while my history actually before CSC was employment with community. I mean, people change all the time, so it's nice to have these connections. I feel like the employment community in Metro is fairly connected, but I do appreciate that folks in rural Newfoundland and Labrador sometimes are not aware of the services that exist and how they will be delivered. Because as a person in trust, if say and Lisa's on here in Labrador, if Lisa says, oh, I heard about this program or this organization, you really should have a virtual meeting and see if it's a good fit for you, then that's how typically the clients get referred. They're not good. They're not usually looking up online and then reaching out on their own. It's from a person that they trust in their area and their communities. Melanie, so we know that you're provincial and that the disability it doesn't need to be paper documented. It's self-identified.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is there any disability that would be a no? Like when I go to see you as a potential client, on my intake form, I guess you're going to ask me about do I have a disability, and then do I have to identify what I think it is, or is it just a tick box? Yes.
So we don't really, I don't want to say care about diagnosis. Diagnosis is something that, or I guess labeling, if it's empowering for you, but we don't really focus on the label. We focus on the barriers that that creates. So yes, you need to check the box that you identify with a disability, but for example, if you say, I think I have ADHD because I really struggle with time management is what we care about, not ADHD, right? So we kind of take that barrier and almost symptom-based approach.
Okay.
What the title is doesn't matter, because every single person with that title will have a different experience. So yeah, you don't
Okay.
really need to say exactly what you think it is. Yeah.
That's helpful. And we have some comments in the chat. So
Mhm.
someone said potentially Gander clients. So yes, anywhere in Newfoundland and Labrador can avail of your services. Okay. And do you consider mental illnesses as long-term disabilities, for example, chronic depression?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, way back when I started with CCRW, I was working under a program that was specifically focused on providing trauma informed employment services. So, the majority, if not all of the clients that I served in that program, main disability was mental health or mental health related. And we're seeing more than ever that our clientele or candidates are experiencing mental illness as their main or preceding disability. So, depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma of any sort, anything like that. If you identify as a disability, then that's all we require.
And you might have talked about it. No, what's the age start and max?
Yeah, so there's no max. Right now, we do require folks to be over 18. We used to have youth services. Unfortunately, that funding has come to an end, but they do need to be over 18 as of right now. If it's a 17-year-old that's turning 18 in a few months and they're like really ready to work, we'll try to figure something out. But over 18.
And can you, I'm hogging the questions. Other people, like, feel free to raise your hands or your chat, but I'm adamant here. So say I was a potential client, someone was working with me. Can you walk me through how I refer? And then, like, say I don't live in Metro, so I live in Labrador. What does my experience look like?
Yeah, yeah. So I feel I am kind of well suited to answer this because when I started that program I talked about, I was serving people mostly out of province. So I'm very versed in this. First, we kind of, we receive that referral, whether it's a self referral, they can email me directly. They can be referred again by a trusted member of the community, another organization. And it's as easy as, I think this person needs to chat with you. And then I will have an initial phone call, Zoom meeting, or in-person meeting with them just to see, are they looking for what we provide, essentially. Sometimes we have folks that are looking to go back to school. We can't, that's not us, but I'll try to get them a resource that is appropriate. Or sometimes we have folks that just aren't really ready to go to work yet. And maybe there's some other services that need to be implemented first. And so once we have that, we're good to go. You meet the basic criteria: person with a disability, over 18, looking for work. We will then kind of move through our intake process. So our intake process is usually 1 to 2 more meetings just to really understand what are their barriers, what are their strengths, what is their history, and kind of in their own terms. So there's a few things that are addressed in this process. First, like connection access. So say you're in Labrador, for example, do you have access to a computer? Do you have access to internet? Do you have access to a phone? Making sure that you have the tools in order to engage with services. If you don't have those, we will problem solve with you to get them, essentially. So once we have that, you're gone through the intakes, we look at your goals. So your goal is to find employment, maybe to redo your first aid, And then you want to do this because you want to move into a nicer apartment, just as an example. But we kind of keep those as our goals in the back of our mind, and we start making sure that you have the tools in order to get that job as that first step. So we're going to look at resume, we're going to look at cover letter, and we're also, I'm not going to do your resume for you. What we're going to do is facilitate the tools so that you're able to do your resume independently in the future. Will I look over your resume and make sure that it's all good? Of course, but I want to make sure that we are providing folks with the tools so 10 years down the road, they can do these things independently when possible, of course. And then I start looking for employers in that area that are either hiring or open to working with an organization such as ours, in addition to that candidate independently applying for positions. So we want to make sure that they are also motivated to find work. We're looking for candidates who are really trying to get in that workforce and are just having a difficult time making it in. And so every single person's journey looks differently. So it's kind of hard to answer the question of what happens. Because it is so individualized. Some folks enter short-term training. So something that's like maybe a few months that will lead to employment, or a few weeks or a day, like first aid. Some folks just want to find employment yesterday and are able to find a job within 2 to 3 weeks. Some folks, it takes a lot longer. Some folks really dive into our resources, like the career management portal, trying to get these skills and really soak in everything that we have to offer. Other folks really just want to get that job and be like, I don't want to do anything else. Just get me a job. I want to start tomorrow. And we can do that too. And then, of course, once they're into an employment opportunity, we look at, does this employer require a wage subsidy? They are there to utilize. We prefer that employers are willing to just take on folks without one, but they are there when needed. And we do have safeguards in place to ensure employers aren't just taking wage subsidies and going to fire them at the end. There are ways that we kind of prevent that. And from there, we monitor for a few weeks or the length of the subsidy to ensure that they're transitioning well. And then we'll follow up over a course of the 12, 24, and 52 weeks. Yeah.
We have some questions in the chat. So we have, are there CCRW offices located out of St. John's?
Mm-hmm. So there's one in St. John's, and then there's several across Canada. We don't have any other in the province, but we do serve people across the province. I periodically travel to Corner Brook just because I'm from there and have done work out of there in the past, just because I've had candidates there. It's fairly sporadic. Like I can't say I go once a month. It's not really like that. But we do have success serving folks from St. John's kind of all over.
And we have, can you explain VR a little more? So we have Don coming to speak to folks at the Paddle Center and really want to be able to relay what that looks like to clients.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Don saying that he would come down with that VR to the Paddle Center. Okay, so I don't know what Don had planned is the thing, because there's a lot of different things that can be done with it. But they're essentially, they will go through a scenario and then get feedback on that scenario on how they could maybe like improve their skills or what they did really well. So maybe it's public speaking, maybe it's communication, just having a conversation with someone, maybe it's eye contact, or maybe it's a skill, right? Maybe trying to get someone to learn kitchen skills and they're going to go through the motions on how to make a meal or how to just have a conversation within a certain rhythm with someone. So there's so many different ones that can be done. But basically go through a scenario, get feedback on how to improve and what you did really well. I don't know if that helped. I could get Don to give you some more information on what he had planned as well.
Yeah, I kind of want to try it.
Come on over anytime. Yeah, it's super cool.
Any questions, comments? Open the floor here now. Don't be shy. Um, so I particularly, I'll reiterate, the provincial scope was important to me.
Mhm.
Referral process was important to me. As you know, we acknowledge our experts are in the communities, getting the word out, the self-identification of the disability, not the actual medically diagnosed, ages 18 plus, and any other like highlight like big key things, Melanie, that you wanted to make sure folks are.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is that folks are relatively employment ready. So we're looking at folks that are looking to enter the workforce pretty soon. And when we say employment ready, we don't mean things like they're great at interviews, they don't need any skills, they're good to go. Of course, that's what we're here for. We're going to work on those skills to make sure they're there. But what we need to make sure is we can't serve an individual who is maybe currently experiencing homelessness, is in an active mental health crisis, or things like that. Those are times where we go, okay, so there's a service that needs to happen here first, before we can get into that employment aspect. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, and also, what about I don't know, you were in like Bay St. George and someone reached out to receive supports and you
Mhm.
decided they weren't ready.
Mhm.
Will you help find a resource relatively close to them? Like you
Mhm.
say you're not ready, and I don't know anybody in Bay St. George, so get back to me when you're
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah, we won't do that. I will seek out, I will be calling people in the phone book if I need to. I'm never gonna, we're never gonna leave you kind of high and dry. It's funny you say that because I'm serving people in Bay St. George right now, but they're engaged with our services. But we won't, if we aren't the right service for you, I'm never going to say, sorry, figure it out, get back to us when you're good, right? We'll always try to seek out that.
And I figured as much, but I find with provincial scope,
Mhm.
sometimes you might not know yourself, and so that's why I asked it because obviously if you were in St. John's,
Yeah.
find someone else to refer to, but if you're an unknown space to you, so
Yeah.
that's important, I think, for folks who are going to refer to you for the trust process, because I know as part of
Yeah.
the trust, like I wouldn't refer and increase the trauma if I thought it was just going to fall flat.
Yeah. And then also I try to I know we have a few questions, but in terms of like trauma informed, we get a lot of people that tell us their story, right? We try to kind of figure out, are we the right resource before we get into that? So that's why we have these like screening calls that are referred to where we just get that high level information. But so if I have someone that goes, yeah, I have a disability, but I want to go back to university, then I go, okay, so this is who you need to connect with, rather than being like, tell me your life story. Story can't help you, you know?
Mhm.
So we have like various things throughout our intake process to kind of reduce harm and that re-traumatization risk. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Audrey, go ahead. Oh no, your
I
volume is
can't hear you.
you're not muted, so I think it might be a
Hmm.
connection thing to Zoom.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, a question about the Youth to Futures program,
Mhm.
because I'm out in community bouncing around everywhere, and I've had a lot of people ask me, does it still exist or all of that sort of thing. So what would you say to
Mhm.
anybody who's asking the question about Youth to
Yeah.
Future programming?
Yeah. I'd say I'm very sad that it doesn't exist anymore. Because it was amazing. I would also say there are other programs at other agencies that are similar. that I might kind of point them towards. Lindsay touched on a point that I think kind of lends itself to the CCRW situation right now, that sometimes we have programs that come to an end and no one knows and people are left kind of confused. And so what we've done as an organization is we've moved away from a program specific model. So I used to work for our trauma informed services. We had our adult, we had our youth. It was all very separated. So we've kind of taken away all of those names, and now no one is affiliated with a program name. So no one would be a YTF candidate. No one would be a Women's Employment Services candidate. They would all be a CCRW Employment Services candidate. And we're kind of trying to create that continuity. So many of the things that were available in terms of supports during YTF still exist if necessary. We don't do group facilitation. So that's sort of that almost like classroom style isn't really existent right now. Not to say it might not in the future, but if you're a young person, and most of our people in YTF were over 18 anyway. It was rare that we had someone under 18. We're still able to do a lot of those skill building, a lot of that job search. We don't do, like, YTF was paid, which is a big draw for people. We unfortunately can't do that. But the skills and the supports that were available there still exist within CCRW. We, in moving away from programs, have made things more individual. So like I said, each person has a different experience, but if we determine that there's a service that is applicable for them, then we'll make sure that happens. Yeah.
Thank you. And Chantel.
So I work in the supportive employment field. So obviously your work and my work kind of intersect at times. So my question is, so say for example, if I had somebody come in, and obviously supportive employment has its own rules, all that kind of thing, and I wasn't able to serve them, but I knew that I could now send them to you. So like, do you guys work with other agencies as well in that same sphere, basically? Like, the way is, from what you've been saying, is like you can refer wherever. But I'm just curious because I've had a couple come in now that have been looking for some of our youth employment programs. Like you guys, our federal program has ended, and we aren't sure what's happening with the provincial ones. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious because if I do have a few more of those pop in, I would love to be able to send them somewhere to get services.
Yeah.
So it's just me being able to do up a resume for them.
Yeah, definitely. We work collaboratively with a lot of different organizations. The more support, the better a lot of the times. Now, we don't want to duplicate supports, obviously.
No.
But if they're really comfortable with someone, I don't know, there's an organization in Cornerbrook that we do this with sometimes where they're really comfortable in that space. So they will go there and have a meeting with one of us, right? Virtually.
Okay.
So we will do whatever we can that's best for the client or candidate. So if they need dual supports, great. If they want to transition right from one service to another, that's fine too. We really just we'll try to make it work, whatever's best for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because, like, with supportive employment, from the way you're describing it, you guys have a bit of a different, like, say, thing for being able to serve clients. We have certain guidelines that we have to follow. So
Yeah.
right now, because we aren't offering any of the youth employment programs, unless you have a diagnosis with proof of an intellectual disability, or you have an autism diagnosis, we can't really do anything, like, a whole lot to help you. Like, I can send you the IPGS, but
Yeah.
you're only just going to do off a resume and you're on your way. So it's great to know that, like, if I have a client come in and it's like, oh, well, I have ADHD or I have severe anxiety. Now I know, well, I can't do a whole lot for you, but I can reach out to Melanie in St. John's and see if she can help you. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
Okay, perfect. You may be hearing from me sooner rather than later.
Great. Yeah. One other thing I just wanted to touch on, I sent it in the chat a little while ago. It's just a link that says toolkit. We have this really great toolkit on our website, just ccrw.org, toolkits aimed for both service providers and more so employers to kind of build their disability confidence. So they can go on there and be like, I don't know what to do about accommodations. I don't know what I'm at, and click on the accommodation tag and get a pretty in-depth review and understanding on how to go about things. We have that for interviews, for we have a variety of different things in there. I really encourage you to take a look at the toolkit because it's really cool. And we just did some work on it. We're very proud of it. So that's a great resource to not only have in your pockets, but when you're working with individuals or employers that are looking to kind of expand their knowledge, that's a great resource to refer them to.
Wonderful. I'm gonna do a last call for questions or comments. I will make a promise that I can send out the toolkit link, Melanie's contact info. Melanie, I don't know how long it's going to, if you have to ask National about the presentation, it might take a while to go, yes?
No, I'll just Teams one of them people. It's fine.
Okay.
It's okay.
I won't send anything until I hear from you.
Yeah, I have some other links. We have like an ebook for doing resumes for folks with disabilities that might be helpful too. So we'll send you that information. It's just about like really framing skills in a good way. So that's a great resource to send to clients or candidates as well. Yeah, we have lots of stuff on the go.
Well, what I will do is you can send it all to me in an email and I will just forward it out because I leave for Portugal in a few
Yeah.
days. So whatever is more
Yes.
for me, I will take that today.
Perfect.
Conscious. So I'll put a little last dig in, I guess, for copies on. Follow our social media, our newsletter, different things, all of our communications for the Community Sector Council. One of the things that I'm really conscious of all the time is how busy folks are in the community sector and how sometimes capacity is strained. So I will never keep you for more than an hour. So hopefully you give us, and sometimes it's a little shorter. Like today, you have a whole 10 minutes. You can go to the bathroom and do the things before your next meeting at 11. I really appreciate you. If I haven't met you in person or met you, my work will bring me to the West Coast and to Labrador, it looks like, in November. And I've already told Lisa I'm coming for her.
Great.
Wonderful. Woohoo. Oh yeah, it's gonna be bananas. Can't wait. So folks, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions and your energy. And myself and Melanie will follow up hopefully before the end of today. When it's looking like the week of November the 4th, I believe. I will put also a little dig in if you are in the St. John's metro region. Part of my work right now is a really innovative partnership between CSCNL, who is it? Wellbeing NL, the Cardiovascular and Stroke Provincial Program. And so we've been doing some community-based well-being events highlighting the social determinants of health, convening community organizations, NLHS programs and services, and even recently inviting some government programs such as Service Canada and the Canadian Volunteer Income Tax folks, so that when a person walks into that well-being fair, they can look at in St. John's, September 22nd, 75 booths, and nothing will cost them a single penny. So it's about being accessible for everyone. Yes, Happy Valley Goose Bay is on the radar. So you will all know. Sign up for our newsletter. You might get some spam from me about my upcoming journey. And if you haven't registered your booth, September 22nd on the CSCNL website, expressions of interest are open. It not only is going to be a massive event, it's actually being used as the launch of Wellbeing Week here in the province. There is a virtual link that folks can watch the Time for Health, Facebook Live on CSCNL. So all that's coming out via our mid-month newsletter so that folks anywhere in Newfoundland and Labrador can feel a part of the event. And that features guest speakers like Dr. Pat Parfrey, Dr. Sean Connors, interviewing a person with lived experience of cardiovascular disease, and a whole bunch of other things. They won't get the booth, but they'll get the whole theater experience from 1 to 2:30 from anywhere in the province via Facebook Live. If technology works for my colleague, because I'm not doing Facebook Live. I can't even operate Zoom. So that's not a Lindsay Hines job. That's we'll pass that on to someone else. All right, Melly, huge thanks to you. Thank you, thank you. And I will let folks go, and we'll be in touch very soon.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening to me ramble for the past hour. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Enjoy your day.